What is up, Nerf Nation? I'm Naptown Nerf, and today I received this from WorkerKit.com, which is another offshoot of Litake, and they sent me the Worker Swordfish. And I have not had the privilege to actually hold one of these. I have seen some, but I haven't actually got to play with it or hold it or really do anything like that. So I'm excited to get this thing open, and I believe this is the transparent blue version. And check it out. So let's go ahead and get it out of this box. Boom. There it is. That is pretty cool. Alright. Get the other parts out of here. Nothing else in the box. So we got the Swordfish, and then you get the little piece with all the screws inside of it, and this will connect to a Chris Vector kit if you choose to put one on here. Okay, you guys, this is the transparent blue version of the Swordfish. Now, if you're not familiar with the Swordfish, it is a shell replacement for the N-Strike Elite Stryfe. And Worker has created this in both a clear and transparent blue shell now. And I think it's really cool that Worker came out with this product. I think it's awesome that we have an option if, for whatever reason, the Stryfe stopped being sold, that we would have this available to us to still put in all those awesome internals that have been created for the Stryfe, and then also the kits that have been created for the Stryfe. Now, probably only the Worker versions of the Stryfe kits, tactical kits, will fit on this blaster until people 3D print one specific for the Swordfish. I'm sure most Stryfe kits won't fit and work with this, but all Worker stuff should be compatible with this. And there are some things internally that aren't Worker that are compatible, and there's also some things that have been found not to be compatible, and I'm not exactly sure what has and what hasn't, but I may try to test out a few things that I own in here and see what works and what doesn't. I do think it's interesting that they chose to go with a Swordfish theme, putting a Swordfish on both sides of the shell. I think that's a little weird and gives us very limited options of doing cool stuff with this, because you ain't getting that Swordfish off. So I was a little disappointed that they did that. I don't think that that design feature was really necessary. I'm not sure why they decided to do that, but it's there and it is what it is. Obviously, you also still have your scales on the handle, which I think do add a nice texture to the grip and make it less slick and more, a little bit more grippy than it would be if it was smooth, given that this plastic is kind of a slick plastic, and if your hands get a little sweaty, I think it may not have been great without a little texture on there. So I think the texture is actually good. Now, the Swordfish is see-through, like completely see-through, as opposed to the rest of the shell that has a frosted look. Same with the Worker logo down here. The blaster does have N-Strike attachment points on the front and the back here, so all your barrel attachments should fit on here, and all your N-Strike stock should fit on here along with Worker attachment parts. The blaster does come with a extended mag release, which is really awesome. I really like that. And then you have your normal rev trigger that Worker has basically copied off of Nerf, and then same thing with the trigger. Slight different design features inside there. And then it does have a pusher mechanism inside here too. The pusher feels a little sticky and could use some lubricant for sure. Maybe not quite as smooth as the Stryfe. The blaster does have an N-Strike rail on top, although it doesn't have the attachment nub. Same with the bottom, there is no nub, but it is an N-Strike rail. This is mainly to work with the Worker kits and the Worker Picatinny rail that slides on top of the N-Strike rail. So that's the reasoning for that, so then they wouldn't have to completely redesign their, kit. So this, I definitely think, looks really good with the Chris Vector kit on it. I don't think it is the best looking blaster without that kit on it, but I think the reason for that mainly is because of this bulkiness over here. They did design this for 132 motors, so it sticks out even a little bit further than the Stryfe does, and it's just completely flat, kind of tapering down in the front there a little bit. But I think it's a strange choice not to do a little bit more with the shell to make it a little more interesting looking by itself, but it is what it is. The grip is very, very comfortable. It's a little larger than the Stryfe grip, but it does feel a little bit thinner to me. But that is not too bad. There are some interesting things on the blaster. We have some holes here that I assume will fit a Picatinny rail there or something that's meant to go on that. I'm not sure. They have you can see where the motors kind of have a space to go on this side of the shell, which is kind of a weird look. It kind of ruins it a little bit in my opinion, but that's there. But then it's also on this side, which I don't understand at all since you don't need it on this side, but that's there along with those two little screw ports, which I'm assuming is for Picatinny rail. Then it has this little square thing up here that I'm not sure what that's for, but maybe we'll find out that has some meaning in the future. I'm not sure, maybe a voltmeter or something like that. I don't know. And then it also has this switch back here that is not doing anything at the moment, but maybe they're making a select fire kit for this and that will work with that. I'm unsure. This is designed to work with stock AA alkalines or possibly IMRs, which I understand is the preference for a lot of people, but I think it would have been nice if they would have left it just a standard opening that a LiPo would fit in, and then have a different part that would slide in there, possibly that would allow for AA or IMR batteries, and then you could pull that out and then it'd just be very clean looking. Now the modders that prefer LiPos have to completely cut all that out, and that doesn't look super great when you're working with a transparent shell. So that's an interesting choice. Let's go ahead and take a look at the internals. All right, you guys. Well, this is an overhead view of the worker Swordfish. And we'll go ahead and flip it over to the other side here. Take a look at that side. It's a very nice shell. I mean, there are definitely some cosmetic issues with it, but overall, looks like it's very nicely made. And we'll go ahead and take out the few screws that they have in here and look at the inside. All right, I think that's all of them. Oh, that comes off really, really easily. Very nice. And that is the inside of your Swordfish. And there is obviously no jam door on this blaster, as most of the worker kits that go on the Stryfe block that off completely anyway, so I understand why they took that out. Now, obviously, if you want a jam door, this might not be the shell for you. I would just stick with a normal Stryfe shell, but they do have a nice plate right here that is a dart stop to keep the darts from popping out of the top of the magazine. I know a lot of people like to modify their Stryfes to put something like this in, so that's really cool. I think that's a nice addition there to the normal internals of a Stryfe shell. We'll go ahead and pull this guy off here, and I'm slightly curious if a regular Stryfe muzzle will go inside here. It doesn't quite fit, doesn't look like. It's a little bit, it's hitting over here somewhere, so that doesn't look like it will be compatible. So that means the resin parts, if you want to put resin parts in here, at this point they don't seem to be compatible, but I'm sure they will be creating parts for this once they make molds and all that. So that's pretty cool. People like Biggs will probably have parts for you for this at some point in time. So just putting the trigger in, this has got a lot of friction. It's definitely rubbing down here, so this is not going to be an exact transplant either, so I would recommend sticking with your trigger that comes with the blaster, as it seems to be a little thinner and shorter. Also, we'll go ahead and throw a pusher in here. As you can see, the oranges are a little different, so the pusher mech might work. So at first glance, it does seem like the pusher mechanism is compatible, so you could switch that out. One thing that's interesting is they don't have a screw locking down the trigger here. It looks like you could probably put one in if you'd like. And the other thing I've noticed is all the screw ports that haven't already had screws in them are not pre-tapped. So when you put in your screws for the first time, you want to be very careful how you do that. I would recommend going in a little bit unscrewing it a little bit, then going in a little further, then unscrewing, and so on and so forth until you get the screw all the way in. Just be careful not to strip out or put in the screw in a weird direction or whatnot. Just be very careful when putting in your screws for the first time. So I'd stick with the normal rev trigger. Seems like the Nerf one will stick there a little bit. Now hopefully people will 3D print a Bobo style rev trigger for the worker Swordfish kit, but until then I'd stick with this one. So the way they've set this up is so you can use a micro switch like this, one of the small ones. This is one I got from Foam Blast, and I know Worker sends their rewire kits with small switches like this. This is a 10 amp. I believe the ones they send are only 5, which are very small and really can't handle some of the larger motors that are out there, but we'll go ahead and see how that works out. It's very nice how they've designed this though, as it seems to be able to hold that in, but you can just put 2 screws in there and then this should activate that switch. So that's pretty neat. So at first glance it does look like the DRS cage works. This is a Gen 4 version. I can't be sure about other versions because I don't have one right here available, but this one does seem to work. The Heston cage doesn't seem to quite fit. It doesn't want to quite sit down on this one here, so that seems like you might have to modify it a little bit to get this to work. It doesn't look like the Eclipse cage is going to fit without modification, and my understanding is the OFP cages do not fit without modification either. Just the standard 3D printed ones seem to have to be modified a little bit to get to work. So I'm not sure exactly what all cages will and won't work in this, but I'm sure people will be adapting at least the 3D printed ones to work with both. So I'm sure that's something that will happen in the future. But I think this is a pretty cool shell. I think it's a very nice, plastic and very nice quality. There's definitely some design elements that I would have done differently. And I think if you like, a transparent shell and you're okay with a Swordfish on it, and you're okay with the kind of bulkiness of this side of the shell, I think this is something that you can look into. Obviously, we don't have a transparent Stryfe right now. We do have the Evader, which is kind of like a Stryfe, and that retails for $40, and this also retails for around $40, but this doesn't come with any sort of internals. So you're gonna have to obviously want to mod your blaster to buy this shell. You're gonna have to want to upgrade all the internals because it doesn't come with any, but for most of us modders, we're doing all these things anyway, so all those stock components are really irrelevant. And I think this is something that's pretty darn cool. So if you're interested in this project, there's always a link in the description box to where you can find one, so definitely check that out. Check out my Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram while you're at it. And if you're interested in supporting this channel and helping it grow, think about supporting me on Patreon. It would be greatly appreciated. If you can't support financially, please still follow, and then always leaving a like on a video always helps out the channel, so I'd greatly appreciate that. Thank you guys so much for watching this review. Don't forget to smash that like button. Please subscribe, and as always, peace out.